So page 5 is when things shift, right? And our main character sort of becomes the door. So happens on this page is the door opens without being touched. So Sam's utterly spent. The tools, the nest, everything's chaos. The plant is dead, and the door is dominant. Panel 2, it's just stillness. Then there's a small kind of sound like a creak from the door opening. In panel 3, Sam's eyes are open. They're slow. They look towards it, and it's just not even a hope anymore, just a reflex. Like, what just happened? Panel 4, the doors open a crack by itself, and inside's just negative space, blackness. There's nothing. Sam heads to the door, approaches it, and they just can't stop themselves. Stand in front of it for the crack. This swallows them up into the panel edges. And then on the end of this page, Sam steps through and disappears. And we don't see what's inside. And then we added a final panel of the door open and no Sam. That was where we left off in the actual script.
Right. So we did change it a little bit.
Mhm.
So the panel one in this is Sam spent, but we had originally had this panel you're looking at where we're looking kind of downwards at Sam on the last panel of 4. But we decided to add that leaning of on the door.
Yeah.
It kind of added something to it. But I really liked uh this panel, and you were like, yeah, for sure it works really well. So we decided to move it over to this page 5. Now, there's one other thing I don't know if we talked about, but I thought about would be that because you have like this panel here on page 1 where they're obviously leaning, or panel 1, sorry, where they're obviously leaning against the door.
Mhm.
And then I'm wondering in this panel here, instead of like holding maybe they're like banging, they could still be doing this, but
Mm,
they're like banging their head against the door.
I like that.
And that's when you have like the door creak open. So it would actually be the same panel in 3, where their heads down, but they're kind of side eyeing like the door, because all of a sudden they hear like a
Hmm.
sound, right? And that's when they get up and move into the door. So what are your
I
thoughts on
like
that? Like
that.
kind
I
of
like the idea that, like, in that second panel that Sam's just like bashing their head, like, I can't take it. And then it's almost like in the next panel, if they put their head in their hands and kind of lean away and then hear the creak behind them, right? So it's like they bang, 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 and it's like, ugh. And then the door has creaked open and that motivates the door fully opening and Sam going in. But I do like the energy of the head bang because that does feel very much like that's pure frustration.
yeah, exactly. Like it's just almost, let's see if I can actually again try to reuse what you've created, right? So
Hmm.
I like what I've done here, but I'm just thinking if I were to like move it so that it feels like the head is banging back,
Hmm.
right? So, I'd still probably change the angle of the head slightly, but I like the composition enough that I would probably try to keep it.
Yeah, I kind of think I prefer it being more like the head than the whole body because that like it feels more angry when you just bash the head versus like rocking your whole body back and forth.
It requires like the head to be
Yeah.
okay. These are things that like the subtle shift of the angle could always be changed again,
Yeah.
right? Like nothing is like definitive here. Um, it's just you want it to be as finished in the sense of like you're not the you've pretty much figured out like most everything in regards to what you're doing. But there are going to be those very subtle little, like this one where we on page 4, I think that was a really big thing to
Yeah.
figure out. Although it could have waited until we got to the start working on rough pencils. But Um, either way, like, it's really just to use as a reference, and then you'll look at it later and go, "Yep, still works for me,"
Yeah.
or there's something maybe I do want to have it go back more, right? Um, and I think actually I'm going to real quickly just see what that looks like to have the head leaning back more, um, like almost like you're looking under the chin a bit,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
it's interesting, like, it's a subtle difference, but like we just found with the panel on, page 4 is subtle differences can change the way the story feels, right? So yeah, it's what kind of movement, how much movement changes how angry or upset the character is.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, if you want to think about it in regards to like acting, right? Having a director
Mhm.
have you try like subtle different,
Exactly.
okay, now try the line a little bit more, emphasis on the first part than it's, like those things. And it's not that it may not be that the director actually knows exactly what they want. It's more that they know what they don't want, but they have to see it first to make sure, yeah, that's not quite working. But it's also, and this is the interesting part. I do wonder now that I'm saying this out loud, like it may work, like it may be a good like shot where the person is doing the right thing, but in conjunction with everything else, it doesn't quite work. So because of that, you want to have different options to see what you can put together to splice together to make the overarching story fit together properly, right? So, because especially if like, you get somebody to do something really big in a moment, but then everything else around it, maybe the thing around the previous scene, uh, or previous shot is also kind of big, so it doesn't feel
Yeah.
as big because of that, right? And so again, that's what we've discovered with that. Imagine that last page with the um, panel 5, where we're like, okay, so the first one we did was the money shot. That worked. But then we need to see what it looks like with the others.
Yeah.
We need to see what, different variations of it. But then we realized once we actually went back to the original, we're like, no, the energy works much better with the next panel. And
Mhm.
that is, you don't always know until you see it. You kind of have to work through it a bit, right? And that's really what we're doing here. And again, I'm going to go back to, if you're working traditionally, to take some of these ideas that you have where you're like, I'm not sure which what works, and just either on a separate piece of paper draw these out, kind of like what I'm doing. But remember, you could always superimpose it on top of the original, kind of like Frankenstein it together, and therefore, you're that original thumbnail you've done. Uh, you may have like different layers on top of it, just depending on like some of the other changes you've made. Um, and so, yeah, like it's just, there are ways to do this so that you're, um, like able to play around. And the beauty of all of it is you're doing it pretty quickly, right? You're not making commitments to anything really. And I think that's what I was trying to say before, is that it's okay if even at this stage you're not 100% making the finished commitment. It's going to be like a placeholder that will, um, uh, that you can make a decision on later on, right?
And I think you made a really important point as well is that each panel has to come from the previous and lead to the next, right? Nothing exists in a vacuum. And sometimes that changes things as well. Like it could be a really cool image and a really cool panel, but when you put it next to the others, it doesn't work. It doesn't tell the story in the right way. It doesn't flow. It doesn't continue. And that's why you have to sometimes tweak it. So sometimes you do have to look at it in context, not just on its own to really decide if it works or not.
Yeah. So again, this may be a bit contentious, but I'm not sure. I don't know if this one, the original one that I have here, may work a little bit better than this. The Yeah, this one right here,
Mhm. I think I
I'm
like
not
the
sure.
original better as well.
Yeah,
There's something about the motion that feels really like internalized, right? The other one feels a little bit bigger, like more intentional, whereas the first one feels a bit more like just like bang, bang, like I'm done, more frustrated versus angry.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and we'll look at it again and go,
Mhm.
okay, maybe
Once we
it's
see the whole
working.
page, we'll look at it again and see what makes the most sense.
Yeah, so um, thinking a little bit about shadow and light here, right? Like, are we, going to darken the rest of this here to make it almost like it's a spotlight
Mhm.
on Sam. Technically, it's maybe dark out and everything should be really dark in the room. There's no light source, but you want to make it more dramatic in this moment,
Mhm.
right?
Interesting what you're just doing now. The immediate thing that I started to see was the face in the door, right? The way it
Hmm.
almost looks now like those are angry eyes and almost like Sam is sitting inside a big mouth, which is really interesting because, again, it's still the door and it's still just the door, but with a bit of the shadow and light that you're playing with, it's starting to look more menacing, you know, as than it did in previous pages, which is exactly how it should be. And because of the kind of story we're telling, we are playing a little bit with, real. Everything about this is a little bit unreal, a little supernatural. So I think that suddenly something being lit up when everything else is dark actually is part of the storytelling technique.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out here. Like, what do you um, do what you think is the logical thing to do, or do you try to evoke the emotional?
Mhm.
And I'm going to go back to like the fact that you created emotional beat for each page, which as I said before,
Mhm.
I don't know if I've had other writers I've worked with do that, but by doing that, I think it really, um, gives it adds a texture, a layer of like, uh, not only like what's happening,
Mhm.
contextually, like what's actually happening in it, but it also gives you like an emotional, feeling, right? An overarching emotional feeling, and
Mhm.
therefore you can play into that. I don't know if it would work with every story because some stories you have like on a page you may have multiple because you may change a scene on a page. So you may have the top half of it where it's really kind of like action oriented, and then you jump to a new scene on the same page
Mhm.
and it's quiet, right? So I mean you could, I guess, divide it in that way still too in a script. I mean, what are your thoughts with that?
Well, I think within a page itself, depending, I mean, if it's only a 1 or 2-page story, you gotta move through it faster. But I think that there is something to be said for, like, when you flip to this page, there's probably not gonna be massive shifts in emotion from one panel to the next. It's gonna take a little bit to tell that story. So I think for the most part within a page, you can be like, "This is where this character is going through this," right? Or they feel this way, or this is how the reader's supposed to feel on this page. If you're jumping really quickly from like, "Oh my goodness, somebody dead, but that's okay, we're getting married," that's probably not all gonna happen on that same page anyways. But I do think that from looking at it and being able to objectively critique whether or not it's working, knowing the emotional beats is really, really important because we can look across these pages and be like, yeah, I can immediately see the difference between them. The story's moving forward, the emotional arc is happening. And by page 5, Sam is a different character to page 1. And the only way to get there was by those emotional beats that happened in between.
Right. So, long story short, if the story, the length of the story, the type of story you're telling lends to being able to do that, like
Exactly.
it's almost the necessity of the type of story that you're doing that kind of like emotional beat.
100%. 100%. And it does vary, obviously, depending on the type of story you're doing. But because with a drama and something like this, like a bit of a psychological horror, it's pretty specific, right? In order to create that feeling for the reader, we have to move through these types of emotions in a certain way. Otherwise, you're not going to get the tension, right? If it kind of jumps back and forth constantly, you're not getting that dread that we're slowly piecing out to you as we move through pages.
sorry, and just the door coming outward? The door's coming out or door's going in?
So I think the door has to go. That's a good question. 'Cause if it's going out, it's gonna push Sam, right? Because if Sam was kinda leaning against it, banging their head, the door creaking open would push them forward. But my thinking is if it's going in, then it's almost like Sam kind of, like, almost, like, falls back and then it's, like, gets up and turns around, to look at it. What do you think?
I think it could almost push Sam a bit,
Yeah.
right? Because I think there would be a different kind of tonal feeling if all of a sudden the door, like, flung inward and then all of a sudden Sam's like, "Whoa,"
Yeah.
right? I think
So then
because
if that's the case, then if it's coming out and kind of pushing Sam out of the way, then it's almost like you kind of created it where it's almost like he's sort of standing up in that frame being like, "Whoa, what's just happened? I just got shoved by this door that has not moved." Right?
Mhm. Yeah, so I feel like it'd come out a little bit.
Mhm.
It's not, and Sam backs away because it does, like, all of a sudden this thing that was, like, supposed to be unable to open.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
that me?
No, and I keep trying to mute it and I don't know why it won't stop yapping at me. I'm trying to quit my messages. It
Okay.
keeps opening. I don't know why. I have to, yeah. But yeah, I
It's
think if it almost looks like Sam's trying to frantically get up, right? Which works. So the door kind of pushed them a bit, then they're like, "Oh my god," like they're trying to stand up quickly and turn around to see what is happening behind them.
yeah, and I think that's right. I think there's, like, a twisting motion of, like, you know, uh, very quick, like,
Mhm.
what's going on here? Like, this
Yeah.
is,
Like it's like
um
Sam banged, bang, bang their head, and then it's like the door tapped them on the back, right? Like all of a sudden they feel some movement. They're like, "What?" And then frantically try and get up. I like the twisting movement of trying to like turn around and see what is happening behind them.
yeah, yeah, and I think I'm getting
Yep,
that, right?
that's what it
So,
looks like now, which is I think then gives that feeling of like the door pushed Sam out of the way almost.
yeah. And maybe that's the because that would be the difference of, like, having it all of a sudden open. Is it because the door just happened to finally give way, now it's going
Mhm.
right? Because that almost makes it feel like it could be less of a a
Yeah,
a
like
a
the
willful
banging
thing by the
loosened it
door,
finally and Sam could open it. Yeah.
right? Versus, well, no, it's opening towards Sam. That's a
Which
pretty deliberate thing,
yeah, and it wouldn't
right?
be
That's
possible. The banging would not have loosened it to open forwards, right? It might have loosened it to open backwards, but not forwards. So, yeah, it tells the story better for sure.
yeah. So, I think the instinct is right to make it
Yeah, I agree.
do that. And then Sam's just kinda, like, standing there, like,
Mhm. What do I do now?
yeah, again, I gonna stress that, like, there's something about the original panel. I'm going to hope that I can capture it, just, like, adding a little bit of detail in there, but I think I'm getting this one working
Agreed.
correctly.
Yep, I think so too.
Um, and then the other thing too is, like, if I want to really lean into this, idea that it's the structure of way things are, there's a bit of an unevenness to it. Like, so the line, even like the panel lines can almost be a little bit wobbly, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think that that's something that could be leaned into. It doesn't have to be uh, like a nice fine line. It
Yeah.
could actually like a little wobbly.
Well, and I mean, it's almost like Sam's whole world just became disorienting, right? Like it went from everything being like, and then also like, what? It just actually opened. Like, so that wobbly line kind of it leads into Sam's feeling of like their whole world just got turned on its head instantly.
And so sometimes I'll just write these notes down, right? So I remember
Hmm.
that, like, maybe prior to this, the lines weren't, they were a little bit more
Yes.
finessed, but now
Yeah. Everything's
there's
become shaky.
yeah, exactly. Like, and here's the thing, like, there is nothing wrong with actually using the original panels, I guess, when you blow them up, you're just gonna just be aware you're gonna see a lot of that. If you're working digitally, you're gonna see a lot of the, uh, it's gonna pixelate, it's gonna blur a little bit. Same thing if you're working traditionally, you're going to, if you were to, let's say, blow this up. So you're working small, put it onto like some kind of a scanner, have it blown up on a like an 11, if you have an 11 by 17 sized printer, or you go to like a place that does, and then all those lines you've put in there are they're gonna be like
Mhm.
fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
So, like if you're trying to replicate that, that's going to be trial and error really at the end
Mhm.
of the day. You're gonna have to figure out like how to keep some of that energy.
Exactly, and then as we're getting into our last page, this is where the doors basically just swallowed the room up. We don't know what's inside of it, and we no longer see Sam. So that's how we end page 5.